Hello and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to discuss naturally occurring glucocorticoids, and among the common example is cortisol, which is also known as stress hormone, and usually it is released when a person is under stress. It is also known as hydrocortisone. When you talk about the pharmacokinetics, this drug having a multiple pharmacological functions and a number of physiological functions. Cortisol exerts a wide range of physiological effects, including regulation of intermediary metabolism, cardiovascular function, growth, and immunity. It is synthesized and secreted from the central nervous system, which is highly sensitive to negative feedback by circulating cortisol and exogenous or synthetic glucocorticoids. So we must need to know that from where cortisol is synthesized. It is synthesized from the cholesterol, and the mechanism of cortisol we will discuss in our upcoming lecture, but I will explain in a brief. It is usually released under the circadian rhythm with 10 to 20 milligram of cortisol secreted daily. And in plasma, cortisol is bound to cortisol bound globulin. The half life of cortisol in the circulation is normally 60 to 90 minutes. So if you take a look of this picture, this is going you to explain you the daily uh, secretion of cortisol, and it is secreted in highest quantity in the morning, and it's started to decline at night. So when you are at highest alertness, the amount of cortisol will be high, and then at night the cortisol level decline, and that's why you go to sleep. So it usually release under the stress condition. I'm not going to discuss the circadian rhythm now, as this is not related to our topic. There's another picture of cortisol level that we can see that the cortisol level rises around 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. It is a peak time and having most active time, and then it decline over the time at night, and then it rise again till in the morning. So you can see that the cortisol level increases, and as the cortisol level increases, there will be increase of the activities, and then the activities decline around 3 to 9, and then at night the process of physical repair occur, we go to a sleep, and then in the morning it again rises. So usually when you wake up in the morning, it is thought to be not because of the sunlight, but it is thought because of the increase of the cortisol level. Sometime if your cortisol level is high at night, you still wake up, you're still unable to sleep. So sometimes some people, if they are not able to sleep at night, it's because of the increase of the cortisol level at night, and it occurs because of the stress condition. Usually under the stress condition the cortisol level rises. So this is a normal mechanism that is actually working on. And if, for example, your circadian rhythm, like this rhythm, we see that the rhythm from 12 midnight to 12 noon, where a person take a deep sleep around 2 a.m., then lower body temperature around 4 a.m., then at 6 to 6:45, there is a sharp blood pressure rises, then the cortisol level rises, melatonin secretion stops, highest alertness around 10 a.m., Then around 2:30 there will be improved coordination. Then around 5 around 3:30 there will be increase of the reaction time. So this whole process is known as circadian rhythm. If we take a look of negative feedback mechanism, we see that by there will be increase of corticotropic corticotropic hormone from the hypothalamus with the help of the stress and circadian rhythm. So if a person having high stress, then there will be increase of corticotropin hormone from the hypothalamus, which stimulate the release of adrenal corticothyroid hormone from the anterior pituitary, and then it is also responsible for the increase of the cortisol secretion from the adrenal cortex. So stress and circadian rhythm plays an important role in secreting the cortisol secretion. The more stress will responsible for having more cortisol secretion, and adrenal corticotropic hormone is responsible for the release of cortisol. So you can see that the mechanism work like the signal has been given to the hypothalamus initially to produce corticotropic hormone. Then that signal go to anterior pituitary to release adrenal corticotropic hormone, and then from anterior pituitary to adrenal cortex, the secretion of cortisol will be increased, and it works like a negative feedback mechanism. If there is a decrease of the stress, then the cortisol secretion will also decrease. You already have studied this in your physiology textbook, so I'm not going to discuss in this topic. When we take a look of macrokinetics of cortisone, it is responsible to convert into 11 hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and only 1% of cortisol excreted unchanged in as free cortisol. So it means when cortisol will be released, most of them it converted into 11 hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, around 20%, and most of them is actually is changed to this form, whereas only 1% cortisol is excreted unchanged and released as free cortisol. So we mentioned that one third of cortisol producing daily are excreted in urine as dihydroxyketone metabolite, and it is measured as 17 hydroxysteroids. How this cortisol hormone works? They work by binding with CBG. CBG stand for corticosteroid binding globulin, and they bind with the so the drug bind with CBG, and then after that it go into the cytoplasm, and inside cytoplasm there are proteins such as HSP, which is known as heat shock protein, and that heat shock protein is responsible for protection of the receptor sites against heat. So what happened that when these corticosteroid binding globulins bind with the drug or with the hormone, they go and then they bind with the receptor by replacing the heat shock protein, and then by replacing the heat shock protein after binding with the receptor sites, they make a dimer. And what is meant by dimer? Dimer stands for two units. Di means two, mer means unit. So they bind with the two subunits of the hormone with the receptor, and then they enter inside the nucleus, where they undergo the process known as transcription, and from transcription to convert into translation process, and then from translation to synthesize the protein. So that's how this mechanism works. So what are the physiological effects of catecholamine? The main thing is that it affects the function of catecholamines. And what are catecholamines? And the examples in catecholamines are dopamine, or serotonin. And we know that these dopamine or serotonin are important neurotransmitters, especially when you are happy, you are excited. Serotonin is playing an important role, and there will be high level of serotonin. So what happened that the catecholamines such as dopamine or serotonin, they are having the lipolytic response to the fat cells, and if uh, there is a decrease of the glucocorticoids such as cortisone hormone, then the lipolytic response of fat cells to catecholamines, adrenal corticothyroid hormone, adrenal corticotropic hormone, and growth hormone also decrease. The high concentration of cortisone hormone, which released during stress, and then there will be more lipolysis. If the level of cortisol hormone or glucocorticoids is decreased, then the lipolytic response of fat cells on catecholamines will also decrease. The second thing, they also mentioned that the response of vascular and smooth muscles to catecholamine diminish in the absence of cortisol. So again, the vascular response and the bronchial response on smooth muscles to catecholamines such as dopamine and serotonin is also decreased in the absence of cortisol. The other thing that is very important, that if there is an increase of the cortisol because of the stress level, then it will decrease the dopamine level and serotonin level. So the more stress you take, the high level of cortisol and the more decline of the catecholamines are, for example, dopamine or serotonin. So that is very important, and that is a physiological effect of cortisol hormone. So when we talk about metabolic effects, it stimulates gluconeogenesis and increase the plasma glucose level. The increase of the insulin secretion also stimulate the lipogenesis, and then the stimulation of lipogenesis result in decrease of the lipolysis, and then because there is a decrease of the lipolysis, then there will be more deposition of the fats. So it is very important that the increase of the insulin secretions stimulate lipogenesis. Let's discuss the metabolic effect of glucocorticoids. It stimulates gluconeogenesis. As a result, there will be increase of the plasma glucose level. It is also responsible for increasing the insulin secretion that trigger the lipogenesis and decreasing the lipolysis function. And as lipolysis decreases, there will be increase of the fat deposition. Then what are the catabolic and anti-anabolic effects? It is responsible for the stimulation of RNA and protein synthesis in the liver. It has some catabolic and anti-anabolic effects such as on lymphoid connective tissues, on the muscles, on the peripheral fat, and on the skin. So the catabolic and anti-anabolic effect on bone are the cause of osteoporosis in Cushing syndrome, and impose a major limitation in long-term therapy use of glucocorticoids. In children, glucocorticoids reduce the growth. So what happened due to excess cortisol, like medications such as prednisone, uh, that produce excessive cortisol. So what happened? That syndrome, Cushing syndrome, will be occur with having moon phase structure, osteoporosis occur, hypertension, cardiac hypertrophy, obesity, then abdominal striae, poor wound healing. So it means that if a person having high cortisol level, or if a patient taking prednisone that increase cortisol level, then it leads to the main disease, osteoporosis or hypertension or muscle wasting, and this is very important. When we talk about anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressive effects, glucocorticoids dramatically reduce the manifestation of inflammation. So, for decreasing the inflammation, cortisol hormones can be maintained, and if we decrease the cortisol hormone, we can decrease inflammation. So, it means that if a person is stressed under stress condition, there will be high cortisol level, and then there will be high chances of inflammation. If a person having more inflammation, it can lead to edema or swelling in the body. So it is very important that you need to maintain your stress level to decrease the cortisol level so that you reduce the inflammation. Then it has some peripheral functions on the leukocytes, and the actions is due to the specific effects of inflammatory cytokinins, as we know that they are decreasing the inflammatory mediators. Then it is also responsible for the production of chemokines, and it is also responsible for the mediators. It is also responsible for the suppressive effect of inflammatory cytokinins such as basophils and eosinophils. So what happening actually in that case, that as we know that it decreasing the inflammation, so it decrease the inflammatory mediators such as eosinophils, monocytes or basophils, but there will be increase of the neutrophils. And what happened that it is responsible for extravasation and infiltration of the leukocytes to the affected tissues. What is meant by extravasation? What is meant by extravasation? Extravasation, in simple words, meaning the leakage. So because of the leakage, it can infiltrate to the peripheral tissues, but they are decreasing the inflammatory mediators, but it is characterized by the increase of the neutrophils. Glucocorticoids also inhibit the function of tissue macrophages and other antigen presenting cells, and the response to antigen is reduced. So it means that they are also responsible for decreasing the allergens. As we know that eosinophil, if the person is allergic to any food allergy, there will be increase of the eosinophil. So glucocorticoids are helpful in reducing the allergy by decreasing the eosinophils. They are also responsible for the decrease of arachidonic acid. We know which is a precursor for the synthesis of prostaglandins and leukotrienes and platelets activating factor. So they reduce the arachidonic acid. We will discuss in detail in our upcoming lectures. So this is a picture of the anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressive effects of corticosteroids, and we can see that the anti-inflammatory effects is leukocyte accumulation, eosinopenia and monocytopenia, which mean the decrease of the eosinophils and monocytes, and this can be used to decrease the allergic response, decreasing the complement components like C3 and C5, decreasing the histamine because it decreasing the uh, atta- decrease the attachment of antigens to the mast cells. The immunosuppressive effects are they having some decrease of the lymphocytes and monocyte functions, and decreasing the lymphocytopenia and monocytopenia, meaning the decrease of the monocytes and lymphocytes, and decrease the complement level. We will discuss in detail in our upcoming lectures. The other effects are initially insomnia and euphoria, that leads to subsequently depression. Glucocorticoids can given chronically and suppress the pituitary release of the adrenal corticotropic hormone, growth hormone, or thyroid stimulating hormone, or luteinizing hormone. They also promote fat redistribution in the body and increase in the viscera, facial parts, supraclavicular fat, and they appear to antagonize the effect of vitamin D on calcium absorption. So the main thing is that if the cortisol level is high, they promote the fat distribution around the visceral body parts, and that is responsible for antagonizing the effect of vitamin D on calcium absorption as well. So it means that the increase of the cortisol hormones promote the osteoporosis. So thank you so much for today's lecture. Hope to see you again.